Here we are, and welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the podcast. It's so great to be back with you. I was not here with you last week. Great to be back with you this week. Last week, James went solo. He had a whole show planned, and I did listen to it, and it was very interesting. It's all about beer and everything else. So that is not my work husband, James, right there. That is Outkick's Bobby Burack, and you know him if you follow the podcast. Bobby pops in every now and then, and I'm so glad to have him tonight. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, Mary, I got thinking the other day, we've
Oh,
probably
good.
known each other for about 1 year. How do I know that? Because we met when you took a little issue with something I wrote about people who buy different colors and sizes of clothes for the holidays
And
and send it
return
back. You
them.
remember that?
Yes, now that
Yeah.
you say it, I do.
Yeah. So I thought of you. I was like, Mary and I have been friends for about a year now, all because she thought my criticism was a little too unfair.
But see, look at that. We have an adult conversation, an adult disagreement, and all's good. See?
And I guess the big question now is, did you do that this year?
No, I didn't buy anything for myself this year
Oh,
at all. It's so funny that you bring that up. My husband and I work so much, especially me, from Thanksgiving to New Year's. He does too. I mean, he's essential personnel. But, everybody in radio takes off the week between Christmas and New Year's. And I did 2 shows a day. I could have done more if I wanted to. I probably could have done, 12 hours of radio if I wanted to. But I said, no, 6 hours, seven tops. That's all I'm doing. Right. So we never have Christmas. We have a party the third weekend in January, and we do different groups of people every year. So like this year, we're doing like my siblings, my husband's siblings, cousins,
yeah.
close friends, my friends from high school, that kind of thing. Last year, we did all people from town. So we do different groups every year because our Christmas tree, I kid you not, is still in the bucket on the front porch, hasn't even gotten put up yet. That's how crazy busy we are. We have not had our Christmas tree up before Christmas in 10 years easily.
I mean, that's something that, like, what's that movie called where the family just despises Christmas and they think about putting the tree out, but it just stays in the box? That's how I picture you and your husband. Although you guys aren't doing it intentionally, you guys are just really busy.
Right. I love Christmas. I love Christmas. And I had some friends of mine here for brunch the second weekend in December. The girls came. So we did get some of like the garland up. We got some of that done. But I absolutely love Christmas. If I could spend the month of December baking and being totally dorky with Christmas music on, I would, but I can't. So there was no buying of anything for me this year. So no.
But
We
the
didn't
big
even go to
picture.
anybody's house. I'm trying to think. We didn't even go to anybody's house for Christmas. Yeah, we did nothing. I have to think about it. I don't think we did anything. Yeah.
Well, big story that you and I are friends 1 year later after a little spat, I guess, per se. But just for people
A
who don't know,
rocky
we
start.
didn't actually get in a fight. We had a
No.
funny banter on radio. I think it was Brian Kilmeade's show, and we've been friends ever since.
Wow, probably was Kilmeade show. You're right.
Oh,
I think it was
yeah.
Kilmeade show. I can't remember because especially around the holidays, they all blend in. I'm and I want to keep track of all the guests because I like to have, keep
Yeah.
people who I thought were good guests so that if I'm filling in on someone else's show, I'm like, oh, book this if I can, it's like the producers book this guy, book this guy. And sometimes they just run together and I'm like, I have no idea which show this person was on. I don't remember
Absolutely.
anymore. So all right, let's start off. Let's see who's here with us. Scott is here with my new Z Fold 5. What is that? Is that a phone? Is that one of those folding phones?
Uh,
Those phones
it
that,
might be, yeah. Those are pretty cool, actually. But yeah, I don't know what the name of them are, but it's possible.
so they're cool. But when we got my current phone, when I got my current phone, we're an Android family. We don't do iPhones. So when we got ours, they had those. That was like the
Yeah.
big new technology. And the sales guy said to us, brand new, I wouldn't buy it if I were you. And I said, oh, okay. He said, give it a couple of years. He said, you close and open that thing for so many times. It's only got so many closing and openings in it before it's just going to crack. So I'm glad to see that Scott waited if that's what it is we're talking about.
Me too.
Uh, Go
Yeah, it's
ahead.
like the people who switched to iPhones too early in the BlackBerry era, right? The people who first got iPhones, they're broke and they crashed early. The ones who waited a few years, they get the better experience. I think that'd be a pretty wise idea.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a big fan of I have to have the latest phone. I'm not that person waiting in line or any of that stuff. I don't care. All right. So Ron says, yes, wind and rain. Oh my. Yeah. Now, where are you, Bobby?
I'm in Michigan, and I work
We
with a
get
lot of people.
snow.
Yeah, well, I work with people all over the country: LA, Nashville, Northeast, New York, Philadelphia. All sorts of them are dealing with power outages today. So it's been hit really in different spots. I see in Kansas City, they're on pace, I believe, for their coldest weekend ever.
Oh, well, I saw on Fox this morning today, some point, 42 states have a winter weather emergency or warning or something along those lines. So I'm at the Jersey Shore, and we're expecting 70 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts tonight. So I'm going to sleep with earplugs in because otherwise I will be up all night because it's coming off the water. My house is on the northeast side of the house, and it's a nor'easter.
Well, in
So
growing up, I used to love these storms because it meant school canceled the night before, right? See, one problem with snow days was always that you had to get up and find out if it was canceled. For these winter weather advisories, at least when I was in school, they would cancel the night before. So I think there's going to be a lot of students who actually enjoy this upcoming week.
well, that's interesting. And we can go off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
My husband and I were talking about this. I don't understand why they closed school. They did over what, a year and a half, 2 years remotely. Why can't they just have the classes remotely? Why do they have to cancel them?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, when I was in school, that wasn't really an option, but
No.
now certainly it is. Yeah, I don't know if they. It's a good point. I don't know if they can just wake up one day and say, "Hey, you have to take this test, but online." But you're right. If they needed to, they certainly could keep it going because, yeah, how long were students stuck at home during COVID?
Yep.
2 years too long? 2.5 years too long? I never
Exactly.
thought about that, but that would really take away the high school experience of having a snow day, right? Like, I think that's part of it.
Right.
You lose
Well,
that
we
ability.
never
I
go
don't know.
ahead.
If you
They
lose the
would
ability to have snow days, I don't know. I would have some sympathy for you.
well, but if you lose, lose the ability to have snow days. When I was working in Washington D.C., they would have, I kid you not, an inch of snow on the ground, and they would cancel school, and it would be melted by 10 o'clock in the morning. But they
Yeah.
would cancel school, restaurants closed, stores closed. Like there was a relatively, I was living in Chevy Chase and relatively upscale area, and they had a mall that had Bloomingdale's and Capitol Grill and all this stuff. It would be shut down for the whole day because they got an inch of snow.
Well, us out in the Midwest out here, we don't cancel for an inch or so. But
No.
you are right, though. There are times where it's snow on the road and it's all plowed by 10:30, and they cancel school anyways. But I am curious now. You mentioned how they can so easily teach school online. I wonder how many schools have kept that possibility open in
Right.
case of winter weather or some flu breaks out or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, our kids, we're probably gonna get, I don't know how many inches of rain. Things are gonna flood, but the kids are still gonna go to school tomorrow, so they'll figure it out. Okay, let's see who else is here, and we're gonna get started. Bill says, "Hi, Queen Mary. I'm having some wine in your honor. Have some with me. I don't drink wine. I'm allergic, but thank you." Porch View Farm is here. Hello. Now Tax USA, are you ready? Hello to all. 2024, are you ready? Scott says, free President Donald Trump. Anton Vanderpool, Happy New Year. Hello, Anton. How are you? Scott says that his phone cost $1,800. Well, aren't you fancy? Fancy schmancy. I find that I do not use the opening big screen very much. Then why pay for it? You can
Yeah.
now open it. You can open it now 200,000 times. Okay. This is new. HLE Adina. Hi, Mary. Finally good to see Bobby Burack's face. I hear him all the time on radio. I thought he was black the whole time.
Well, you know, it's yeah, that's a fair criticism. I will say I have been doing a lot of radio. I haven't been on camera as much the past 2 months, so people probably don't know what I look like. So I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult or just a neutral statement, but I appreciate the curiosity about me. That's always a win.
Yeah, I think it's a totally neutral statement. I don't think it's one way or the other. Yeah, I think it's cool. Like somebody
Yeah,
finally gets to see you, they know the voice, and they have people get a mental image of what they think you look like,
yeah.
right? And then when they finally, it's so much easier now than it was. Think about it. Back in the 90s, even
Yeah. Yeah,
you had
it
to have a
is.
mental image of what that person on the radio looked like because you didn't know.
Oh,
So,
yeah. So I grew up listening to a lot of talk radio locally and nationally, and I didn't know what the people looked like. Like I knew what Rush Limbaugh looked like because he had been on TV, but I remember when I first saw Mark Levin, I didn't picture him to look the way he did.
so I'll tell you a little story. We're going off on a tangent here, and then I want to get to so we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. But the first time I met Mark Levin was back in probably it had to be in the 2000s. It was early to mid 2000s. I was at the Talkers Convention in New York, and I was working at Fox at the time. And I'm sitting, and I hear this voice, and I'm sitting behind him, and he dropped some money out of his pocket, so I picked it up, and I tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, "Here, this fell out of your pocket." Oh, thank you very much. And he did that. I go, "Are you Mark Levin?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "No way, you're not Mark Levin." And he just started laughing at me. And basically, I said to him, I go, "You don't look like anything I thought." He goes, "What'd you think?" I said, "I thought you were like about 95 years old. And I just had this image of you at like the early bird dinner in Boca complaining about, the pudding." I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta say this. Ben Shapiro is the one person where his voice does match what he looks like. Am I wrong there?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. But Mark was lovely. And then of course, when I was working in Washington, D.C., that was his home station. So I got to know Mark. I would see him we'd have station events and Mark would be there. And off the air, he's hilarious. And he's not nearly as he is on the air. He's actually Zen. It's pretty cool. So and we were on, funny story, we were on with Sean. We did a station event and Sean Spicer was there, and Sean was up on the stage before the rest of us all went out. And Sean gave me his cell phone. He goes, "Here, hold this for me. Can you hold this for me?" I said, "Sure, I'll hold it for you." So I'm sitting there in our little green room with him, with Vince Colonnese and Larry O'Connor and Chris Plant and Mark Levin. And we're all sitting there. And Mark goes, "Hey, you got Spicer's phone?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Let's start texting people." It's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Mark is like, "Come on, give me the phone." It's like, I'm not getting in trouble. And he was probably locked, so I don't think we could have done it anyway. But I just thought it was hilarious. Like, let's start texting people. It's like, no. Okay. Greg says, "My phone folds because it's a lousy flip flow." Good with you. Anton agrees with HLE Adina that apparently he thought you were black too.
I'll have to run a Twitter survey or X survey. How many people thought I was black before they saw me? I don't know. Maybe it's a real trend. I will say it's the first time I've ever heard it, and I've heard it twice in one night. So
there you go.
hard to say.
Squeaky says DC Beltway with half an inch of snow is insanity. Been there, done that. Yes. And HLE Adina also said that I usually hear him on Stacey Washington on Sirius.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Stacey
I
a lot.
love Stacey. I have a weekly spot on there every Wednesday. We actually talk for about an hour, pretty uninterrupted. We go really deep into different subjects. Really appreciative of that platform. Stacey's great.
Yeah, no, I like Stacey. And sometimes I get to fill in for her as well. All right. So let's get to what we're going to get to here. First of all, I want to, I have to thank some people. First of all, if you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Just go to YouTube and look for Mary Walter Radio. And if you click on streams, when you get to the page, it brings you to the live podcast. You can go back and watch older episodes. There's a couple there with my now friend, Bobby. And Sean Spicer, a whole bunch of other people there. Gail Trotter, Christine Flowers. There's a bunch. I want to thank some new subscribers: Star Driver 1, Steve Hamill, Daryl. Let's see, Monique Godbout. Thank you so much for subscribing. Please like the podcasts, especially if you go back and look at some older ones. We appreciate it if you like them because there's a ratio that if you watch and you don't like, give it a thumbs up they rate them and stuff. So really appreciate if you would do that. Also, want to thank EB for doing all of our graphics. I just got Bobby's headshot, so I'm going to be we'll get a professional one made for you, Bobby, for the next time you're on, so we can put that out on Twitter and social
And
media.
everybody will know what color I am beforehand.
Maybe I'll have EB tint it just a little bit so you don't know.
Just throw everybody off a little bit.
It's a pretty dark picture to begin with, so it's a little darker. It's not the best lit picture, so maybe we could do something like that. And his son, Zach, is our #1 fan. And because of Zach, I can never change my name from the Queen. Also, you will notice my camera shaking now because my cat is on my table licking his butt. So the camera is going like this. All right. So you have a piece out. You have a couple pieces out in Outkick. And the latest one that I had seen, and you have several since then, but we started this conversation and you coming on, was about Claudine Gay resigning from Harvard. And she resigned as president, but she didn't really resign, right? And so the left starts this whole thing that like, oh, the right is embracing cancel culture now, which I think is hilarious. But I kind of wouldn't be all that upset if the right started to go, hey, turnabout's fair play. You're all about cancel culture? Here you go. She wasn't really canceled though, was she?
No. Yeah, I took issue with that last week. There were a lot of people who said this proves conservatives are hypocrites because they canceled Claudine Gay. Not really. What cancel culture really is, at least when it became a normalized term, is when outside people, be it Twitter users or journalists, force a company to fire or ruin somebody based on their speech that the outside disapproved of, right? Like if you said all lives matter and Twitter says, well, that's racist, you could get fired. That's cancel culture, when you're punished for having an opinion that the masses don't like. What happened to Claudine Gay was accountability. Harvard didn't force her to resign as president because of her opinions, of her speech. She was forced to resign as president essentially because of her billionaire donors saying, hey, we're going to pull out the money if you keep her, which they did, and also because she plagiarized for so many years. That is not cancel culture. That is her facing accountability for bad behavior, which is costing the company money via donations and plagiarizing nearly 50 times. I liken it to the kid on campus suspended for putting all lives matter in a student paper is much different than the student kicked off campus because he sexually assaulted somebody. One is accountability, one is cancel culture. What happened to Claudine Gay was accountability.
And she really wasn't held accountable, because the other part of all of this that I think is a real reason she should have been taken out of that presidency was the testimony that she gave in front of Congress was so horrific. Was just so terrible. She knew she was going to be there. She knew that with the questions she was going to be asking, she either didn't prep or whoever they paid to prep her should be fired because they were terrible. To me, that was the most egregious part of the whole thing. And then, of course, when they didn't fire her, then people started digging into her background and all this plagiarism came up. But even then, they tried to spin it. So what did they do? Okay, you're not the president, but we're going to pay you almost $1 million a year. You get to keep your salary, and you're just going to teach a couple classes.
What? Yeah, right. And that was the other point I made in the piece. Cancel culture is usually when you're quote unquote canceled, you can't find another job. You have to start hosting a podcast on Rumble because no one else will hire you. Cancel culture is not when you land in an even cushier gig, which, by the way, according to the New York Post, she's actually in line for a raise in her new position. So if canceled means a raise for an easier job, I hope Outkick cancels me really soon.
Yeah, but yet the president of Penn, President McGill, the white woman got shoved out and she got nothing. Like, she's done. She's totally done. But yet they're screaming about how racist this is that they only came after the black woman. The black woman's making out like there's no tomorrow. She's actually going to be in a better spot.
Yeah.
So I don't understand this.
Well, the reason that they're making this about race, I think, was pretty evident. Because in 2020, the race card was so powerful that you could never fire a black woman unless she committed murder and there was a video. But the reason like Jamel Hill and Mark Lamont, whatever his last name is, Al Sharpton, Joy Reid. The reason they're crying racism is because this is a sign that the race card didn't protect her from bad behavior. The race card is starting to lose some momentum. So the race hustlers that only have the race card at their disposal are quite terrified.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is a great point. I mean, it still protected her to a certain degree.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not right. It's not evaporated, but it's not as powerful as it was. I think if this was 2020, 2021, I think she'd still be president right now.
right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I just thought that that was so interesting when we started talking about the cancel culture. And what really, again, everybody went after the plagiarism. And I'm like, what about the horrific testimony in front of Congress? And we're going to talk about that. And what about the president of MIT, the woman who also, oh, I forget what her name was, from MIT,
Oh,
who
yeah.
also testified? No one's calling for her to resign. She seems to have flown under the radar. I don't know how it happened, but she seems to have kind of like skated under somehow.
Well, you might disagree with me on this. And I wrote a piece about this in November before the testimony. So, where I push back on a lot of conservatives, and it ties back into this, conservatives, when they saw Harvard, Princeton, and Yale students protest against Israel in support of Hamas, they said, well, those students should be punished. But here was my thought: the answer to hate speech is always more speech. People with truly destructive thoughts will eventually convict themselves. See, I've been a critic of Ivy League institutions ever since I started writing online. I believe Thomas Swalwell when he says the road to hell is paved by Ivy League degrees. However, most of society didn't agree with that. Because those students were allowed to express their support to Hamas, they now agree with me. And it's now weakened Harvard. The fact that Liz McGill and Claudine Gay could go in front of Congress and not say that calls for genocide against Jews are a violation of campus policies, that exposed them. So I think by and large, I'm happy these bad faith actors were able to tell us who they are because they are now vulnerable because of it. You see donors, law
Right.
firms, and early acceptee students now saying, wait a minute, I used to support Harvard, not anymore.
And a lot of these students aren't going to get hired by some of these
Right,
law firms
exactly.
now because they graduated from Harvard. So now the degree is kind of like a scarlet H. Oh wait, it is a scarlet H, and they're not going to be too happy about. But I feel bad for the other kids who like genuinely aren't taking part in any of this, and
Right.
they're going to get painted by that brush as well. And by the way, plug for Thomas Sowell. I love him as well, and I tell everybody read his book. Black Redneck White Liberal. Last year, when I broke my leg and I was in bed for 6 weeks, my friends Terry and Frank sent me 2 books. They sent me Fauci, Dr. Fauci's the book about Fauci, which I still have not gotten all the way through, and Thomas Sowell's Black Redneck White Liberal. Phenomenal book. I had to read it with a dictionary because he unnecessarily uses huge words, but I think that's just the way his brain operates. Fascinating book. I love it. It's just a great book. And it's a really good book because liberals go, oh, Sowell, oh, figures, like they just totally discredit the message because they can't stand they can discredit the messenger because they don't like the message.
The 2 people I've quoted the most since I started writing online are Thomas Sowell and Andrew Breitbart. I think that they did such a good job of foreshadowing what was to come.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to some comments here before we move on. Now Text USA says, I've come to the conclusion the problem with our nation is lying and not taking responsibility for one's actions. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, especially today. We got a couple of those stories. There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, lies everywhere. I think it's one of those things where if you lie, you tell the lie well, and you keep on lying, a lot of the country's going to believe you based on whatever political values you've espoused previously. So people aren't held accountable for lies. In a lot of ways, they're incentivized by lying.
Yeah, who was it? Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's guy, said if you tell a lie often enough, the lie becomes the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, where are we? Anton says Gay's resignation waited until the 2023 donation checks came through.
Yeah.
Figures. Feels economical. Okay. Barry said, oh, Barry from North Carolina is here. Hello, Barry. That's my friend. Scott, how coming from poor childhood affects people? He wants to talk about that. Okay. Um, Anton says he's reading Soul's Vision of the Anointed. Oh, I'm so sold. He totally won me over with Black Redneck White Liberal. Phenomenal book. So maybe I'll get Vision of the Anointed and try that one too. But I want to finish reading the Fauci book. So I want to get into that. All right. There's a lot to cover, so we're going to switch gears here so I don't keep poor Bobby all night. Okay, so Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, let's talk about the Now Tax USA's comment that the problem with America is lying and not taking accountability. What the hell is going on? The Defense Secretary of the United States clearly doesn't talk to the president every single day when we have Houthi rebels and a proxy war that's being waged on U.S. troops in the Middle East, right? They're being shot at every single day. We've got the military Navy being shot at. They're lobbing mortars and etc. They're lobbing fire at the Houthis, right? Which is I think our Iran's proxies, right? And then you've got what's going on in Israel, and you've got what's going on in Ukraine, and Joe Biden doesn't know that his defense secretary is in the hospital. Apparently nobody knew. This reminds me of when Pete Buttigieg went on paternity leave and didn't bother to leave anybody in charge. Like, what the hell is going on in this administration? And then I was watching CNN today, and they're all spinning. They're all spinning a bit. Well, it's really not that big of a deal. And we heard what's his name? Ryder. Major General Pat Ryder gave a little bit of a press conference today. Well, we're going to go back and we're going to look at the best practices, and we're going to figure out how we can do things better so this never happens again. It never happened before because there's protocol in place for when you're going to be out, especially he was under general anesthesia for surgery, and somehow nobody knew.
Yeah, in a story like that. And don't you think when you read a story like that out loud, you think this has to be satire, right? This isn't actually true, but it's always true. It's unbelievable. I criticize the late night shows and SNL a lot because they're in the golden age, Mary. They have so much fodder to make fun of this administration, but they don't do it. Headlines like those, and really from the start, however bad and cognitively declined we thought Joe Biden was going to be in his administration, I think they've surpassed their expectation. I mean, they've been horrible, so out of touch, so lackluster, and just confused. You're right. This should have never happened. It doesn't happen before. And just another dark mark on an administration that has become a parody of itself.
But what bothers me is we saw it's a dark mark. It never should have happened. Nobody's going to resign. Austin's not resigning. Listen, this timeline. Okay, so he was admitted to Walter Reed on January 1st with complications. So he underwent a prostatectomy December 22nd and was under general anesthesia during it. So that's December 22nd. He went home the next day. He was then admitted back to Walter Reed on January 1st with complications from the December 22nd procedure. They initially found he had a urinary tract infection. Then January 2nd, he was transferred to the ICU where he still is. Okay, where he still is a week later. So this is probably a lot more than a UTI.
Yeah.
Right? One would think you're in the ICU for a week with a urinary tract infection. Not buying that at all.
Yeah, me neither.
And something else is going on, but we don't know. Then doctors discovered that he had abdominal fluid collections impairing the function of his small intestines. So that it resulted in a backup of his intestines' content. So they had to place a tube through his nose to drain his stomach. It was a non-surgical drain placement, and he has progressed steadily. The infection is cleared, and he continues to make progress, but they said it's going to be slow. So the second hospitalization, they say he has never lost consciousness and never underwent general anesthesia. well, that was the second one, but the first one, he was under general anesthesia, and somehow the president didn't know. And to your point, like, yeah, it's another black mark. But my point, if this was under the Trump administration, oh my God, they would want Austin fired. They would want him impeached. There would be a full investigation. Mika would be rolling her eyes. They'd roll right the hell out of her head. Joy Behar, her brain would explode. And this Joy Behar would be binge eating. She'd have 2 gallons of ice cream right there on the View, just shoveling in her face. That because she'd be so upset.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
let's take this a little bit further. Why are journalists whose job is to ask questions and hold people in power accountable? Nobody is in more power than an administration. Why aren't they asking the questions you and I are? I've read
Right.
about this. They're just parroting what the administration has
Yeah.
said. They're not asking what you did. Well, hey, is this a UTI? Why is he still in the hospital? Hey, why did this happen? What protocols were in place prior to this event? None of it. They're just
Yep.
quoting what the White House wants you to hear. They say it,
Yep.
and that's it. That's offensive to anybody who once had any respect for the journalism because they're failing, and they're failing like over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Last Tuesday, after he was admitted, some of his duties were transferred to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Kathleen Hicks, who was on vacation in Puerto Rico. How is she supposed to do the job sipping a Mai Tai on a beach in Puerto Rico? I don't know. I would think that what would have happened, God forbid, if there was a terrorist attack inside our country?
Yeah, and you got to think too. Other countries hear this, and it just
Yes.
makes us less intimidating to the outside. They must say this country's not nearly as strong as it once was. It makes us more vulnerable, and that's a pretty
Yep.
terrifying thought. I mean, I first, it is somewhat a funny story, but it's also a serious story, and
Mhm.
our enemies see all of this.
The Defense Department didn't tell senior officials at the National Security Council until Thursday. Thursday, not even a week ago. Last Tuesday after he was admitted, as I said, Puerto Rico. She wasn't told that Austin was hospitalized until Thursday. So they transferred some of the powers to her on Tuesday, but she wasn't told he was in the hospital until Thursday. It's just insane. Clearly, they didn't want to tell Biden. Clearly, they wanted this hidden. I don't know why, but they did, and they're going to get away with it. No one will be held accountable, and because it's the Biden administration, the Democrats, they can do whatever they want and cut whatever corners they want. And like, to your point about the journalists, nobody asks the questions, so
Yeah,
they're never held to account.
yeah, and look, we're what 10 months away from the election. If you could sum up the Biden administration through this about 3 years now, lack of accountability is what I conclude. From the start, nobody is held accountable. The journalists don't pressure them to be held accountable. Senior leadership doesn't hold those accountable below them. The party doesn't seem to hold anybody accountable. That's a shame. And I think that sums up what is happening here. It's not just the lies, it's the lack of consequences for the lies.
Right. Well, nobody held the Obama administration was never held accountable either. And
At
this
all.
is the third term of the Obama administration. I think we all know that, right? They were never held. Remember, Barack Obama told us with a straight face that he didn't know the IRS was targeting conservative groups. And when he was asked how he found out about it, he goes, I found out about it the same way y'all did. I was just reading the paper. That's how I found out about it. Oh shucks.
He was given the Nobel Peace Prize. So
He hadn't done anything and he won the Nobel. All right, let's see. Poetry Farm says this DOD situation just shoved into our faces that people outside of the government are in charge. That's very true. I think the military is in charge personally, but that's just me. Like every good coup, the military is in charge, right? And this was the
always.
Department of Defense protecting their own. So, and they're going to get away with it. Gregory says, would you want to report to someone with dementia every day? Actually, having dealt with someone with dementia, it can be fun. So
Yeah, and
there's that.
certainly you don't fear him. And yeah, in a lot of ways, I think that it's the easiest path, but it's a fair point a little bit that probably for their side, it's better to have somebody in control that's not Joe Biden, which I think we all know is actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad. He's not going to be the presidential candidate anyway.
I don't think
I
so.
don't say
I don't think so either.
this is going to be either a contested convention, or he's going to step down due to health reasons, and they're shoving Michelle Obama in there.
You know, I'm with you, but I have to say, I wonder if the original plan was Gavin Newsom and they just
Yes.
realized he wasn't good enough. That seems to be what happened. So Michelle Obama's probably the new option because Newsom just would probably not only not win, but he's not good enough. He is the American Justin Trudeau, as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's not Gavin Newsom because they can't throw over Kamala Harris with a white man. They can't do it.
Yes.
They still have to play the race game, but they can throw her over with a black woman.
Absolutely.
So
I would
they can
not
do
be
that.
surprised if the next, let's say in 2028, I don't even know if white men will even be considered for the Democratic nominee. It's like, look, this party in some ways has just exacerbated identity politics. They made everything about race. I think the one
Yep.
thing that probably bothers them at their core is that the Democratic president right now is an old white guy, the type of character they spend so many hours a day railing against.
Yep. But he's not literally Hitler, so there's that. Porchview Film. Let us not forget Wilson's wife ran the presidency for a while. Valerie Jarrett? I don't know who we're talking about. Valerie Jarrett, Valerie Plame? Susan Rice? I don't know. I forget. I don't know whose wife we're talking about. Sorry, Porchview. I'm a dummy.
I think Susan Rice is running the administration.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
AWOL, it is that simple. Any other person would be facing court-martial. He was AWOL. 100%. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Great point. How would anybody else be facing court-martial? But because he's a Democrat, it's okay. And nothing will happen to him. Here's the drop. He actually had mono. Yeah, but they don't hospitalize you with mono. Got news. I've had it twice. HLE Edina. I think it's Edina because that's Edina, Minnesota, right? Isn't that where Edina is?
No.
Michigan, Minnesota, Edina. I think so. They're afraid of being called chaotic like the Trump administration, where people are getting fired or quitting and getting replaced all the time. Here's the thing is I don't think that the Trump administration was any more chaotic than any other administration. It's just that the media stoked it all up. And if the janitor left, it was a big headline that, another person quit the Trump administration. So I don't think the Trump administration was more chaotic. I think actually probably the Biden administration is more chaotic than the Trump administration. It's just that they whipped it into such a frenzy to make it seem like it was chaos.
Yeah, the media gave us front row access to what was going on, although not really because they lied a lot of the times, but they always put the camera on them and reported everything and made a big deal. Remember, the media's lost a lot of influence. What they still do control is messaging and perception, so they are able to use whatever influence they have left to convince you the Trump administration is chaotic and out of control, which they don't do with the Biden administration for obvious reasons.
Right. Barry, going off on a tangent, said, why did the Epstein list show the same people over and over and no political perverts? Well, because it's not what's her name's black book. That's why. It's just the names that have been coming out were the names from the Virginia Giuffre, Ghislaine Maxwell civil trial,
right? Deposition.
And so those were just the names of the witnesses and things like that, like doctors. Some of the names were redacted because they were underage at the time and they were victims. So everybody thinks like it's the Epstein list. It's not the Epstein list. Even the flight log doesn't mean jack, because even RFK Jr. goes, I flew on his plane, but nothing happened.
Right.
Just because you were on the plane doesn't mean something happened or you were part of it. You could have gone to the island. If you looked at Epstein's Island when they came out with the videos, they showed you the pictures. We all had to see them, right? We all had to see the pictures. There were separate areas of that. It was a compound. There's more than one building. So just because you were in the main building doesn't mean that you were diddling little girls in another building. So I think we have to be very, very careful with just because someone's name comes up on the flight log or whatever. But This is not Ghislaine Maxwell's black book. That's what you want to see. Everything else is just is you don't know. So
Yeah, I know a lot of people are disappointed in the release. We didn't really have a release. We don't really know all that much right now, other than a few details. Yeah, so I think what we'll know, we don't know now, if we ever know. I'm skeptical still that how much the public's ever going to become aware, because I just don't
no.
trust the distribution of information on anything, especially something like this, where some really powerful people are likely involved.
Yep. Yep. DOJ's had that book for how long? It's going to be kept secret forever and ever and ever. Let's see. Someone suggested Joe Biden and Michelle Obama as VP. What do you think about that? And I'll tell you what I think.
Well, I think she's too powerful and too much of a distraction, right? I don't think she can play Robin. I think her personality is bigger than Kamala's, bigger than Biden's. So it would just
Yep.
seem awkward, and it would just lend more credence to the idea that Biden's not in charge. So I don't think the party would ever do it.
I don't think Jill Biden would allow it to happen.
It was that too. Yeah.
I think she's the one that'd say absolutely no way. Don't now Tax USA says don't count out Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Well, does he mean as an independent?
I don't know, or running as yeah, he's an independent. He's not running as a Democrat anymore, right?
Right. Yeah. I think in November he declared he's running as an independent. So I'm not sure what the comment, or I'm not sure what he's referring to there.
Yeah, well, what's interesting though is the New Hampshire primary, Joe Biden's name's not on the ballot because the DNC took away their delegates anyway. It's so funny. In 2021, Joe Biden, the Biden administration sanctioned Nicaragua because Ortega, the incumbent president/dictator, was running what the Biden administration called a sham election.
Mm-hmm.
That it was an insult to democracy because he had his opponents jailed, or he had them charged with crimes that made them ineligible to run and had their names taken off ballots. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, and that's why I don't mean to be the guy always pushing back on the right tonight, but I keep seeing people on the right say Donald Trump is going to win. It's a sure thing. I don't trust the system in place to allow him to win.
I agree.
So to me, if I were to bet on it right now, I would bet on whoever the Democrat is, because they have such a built-in advantage that we're not supposed to ask about. I mean, even some of the stuff that we know for certain, that Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they're influencing voters. I mean, I just don't trust the system in place to say that Trump should be the favorite.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think they're going to let him win, and I don't think they care if we see what they do.
I agree. I don't even know if calling them cheaters even offends them. And that's why I would say too, it's just like when we point out how racist the Democrat Party has become, they don't really get all that offended. I think they are proud of it. They think they're doing what's morally right. And if they cheat in 2024, I think they'll go to bed just fine, thinking that, hey, we prevented Hitler from returning to the White House.
Right. They're very it's their religion. Woodrow Wilson had a stroke during his presidency. So I think they're talking about the whole thing about not knowing where Lloyd Austin was, right? All that. Barry, do you think Mark Cuban selling his team is presidential move, or he knows the NBA is on the decline and sold it on the high side? I don't think Mark Cuban's running for president. Do you?
I think it's the latter. I think that the NBA is on the decline. One thing about Mark Cuban, who I have diminishing respect for, he's very forward thinking and seems to make sharp business moves year ahead. I think he knows the NBA is not what it once was. Half the country has waved goodbye, and he's just trying to get ahead while his team is still at maximum value.
Smart then.
Yeah, it is.
Wish I had a team to sell. Now Tax USA says, I think the Dems will be in a situation and have to recruit Kennedy to fill the vacuum. I think if anybody, they recruit Michelle Obama, right? And she'll be like, no, really, no, I can't do it. No. Okay, ask again. No. All right, I'll do it.
Yeah, I I don't see Kennedy. I don't. I think that so many people in the party are against him. I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't see it either, but it would be interesting if it did. I think he could get a lot of votes. I think he can get a lot of independents. He can get a lot of never Trumpers. All right. I just want to talk because there's 3 more stories. So we got to do this quickly because it's 8 o'clock. Okay. Now, Bobby does not know the story. It broke today. It's been all over Twitter. Speaking of which, I have to pull up a page on Twitter here. Hold on. I have to pull up where is it? On the podcast. Okay. From Kanakoa the Great. All right. This is Technofog on Substack, who I like Technofog. Usually pretty good. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, the one responsible for getting the Donald Trump mugshot. Remember that? Okay. She is alleged to have an ongoing affair with her subordinate, who is the Fulton County Special Prosecutor named Nathan Wade. The claim comes from the attorneys for defendant Michael Roman, who today followed their motion to dismiss and disqualify DA Willis and the special prosecutor. Roman faces years in prison after being charged with 6 counts by special prosecutor Wade, including a violation of the Georgia RICO Act. All right. I'm going to pull him up because I think he's one of the guys who was affiliated with Trump. Michael Roman. Let's see. No, maybe that's not him.
And the RICO Act was pretty much how they brought down the mob.
Right, but they're going after Trump and his co-defendants with a RICO charge, right? Mm-hmm. Now, his attorneys alleged today that DA Willis and Nathan Wade, her subordinate, quote, have traveled personally together to such places as Napa Valley, Florida, and the Caribbean, and the special prosecutor has purchased tickets for both of them to travel on both the Norwegian and Royal Caribbean cruise lines, unquote. DA Willis and Wade have been observed in private time together in the Atlanta area and are, quote, believed to have cohabitated in some form or fashion at a location owned by neither of them, unquote. Sources close to both parties have confirmed, quote, they have an ongoing personal relationship during the pendency of the special prosecutor's divorce proceedings. So he was still married, going through a divorce, and they were having this during all of that when he's going through the divorce. It is alleged that this relationship began before Wade was appointed special prosecutor. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution noted that both parties have not denied the relationship. Now, Technofog breaks it down. And he says this is important for a couple of reasons. The first one is the Georgia Rules of Professional Conduct, which is the state's guidelines for lawyer ethics. Those rules require an attorney to practice with independent judgment. Fulton County government officials like Willis are to be in fact and in appearance independent and impartial in the performance of their official duties, that there be in public confidence in the integrity of the county. Prosecutors in the state of Georgia are required to take the oath that says, I swear that I will faithfully and impartially and without fear, favor, or affection discharge my duties as district attorney and will take only my lawful compensation. So help me God. Now Technofog went to a New York law school legal and judicial expert, Stephen Gillers, and he said that if the allegations are true, Willis was conflicted in the investigation and prosecution of this case and did not deliver the independent professional judgment her position as district attorney requires. He went on to say this is a potential basis for the disqualification of Willis and Wade, as both prosecutors have had personal interest or stake in the defendant's conviction. Willis also broke the rules governing the appointment of a special prosecutor to benefit her lover. According to the filing, Willis apparently misrepresented how she would use Fulton County funds to clear the COVID-19 legal backlog, and instead used those funds to appoint a special prosecutor without proper approval. Now, we're hearing this claim also with Jack Smith, that he was not properly approved, that he is not a legitimate special prosecutor. All right, well, he's special counsel. The violation of the rules is an especially key detail here because the beneficiary was sleeping with the DA. As a result of this appointment and the billing approvals overseen by DA Willis, Special Prosecutor Wade has received almost $1 million in legal fees from Fulton County, substantially exceeding compensation for any other Georgia state or county prosecutor. And these funds were used allegedly to fund their vacations and getaways.
So this is, as you said, it's the first time I'm hearing this. So to be clear, their relationship started before he was appointed?
No, but right. She appointed him special prosecutor.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that just reek of corruption? Every line you just read?
Yeah, and the fact that she approves his billing, and along those lines, it turns out he has submitted false records. In one invoice, he billed Fulton County for 24 hours of work at $250 an hour. He claims he worked 24 hours on November 5th of 2021.
Right. So in any system rooted in logic and common sense and impartiality, these two would be put on leave until an investigation is completed, right?
Well, in any normal impartial system, yes.
Right. In a normal impartial system, they would both be put on leave, investigation would be conducted, then their fates would be decided. I'm doubtful that will happen.
Me too. I'm very doubtful. Now, this is what he is alleged to have done here. This falsifying of the hours and her approving it, and then him getting paid all this money and then traveling on the using the money. Now, how this defense guy found this out? Somebody on the inside squealing, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who ain't making as much money as he is, someone who's getting the short end of the stick, is squealing on them apparently. But that is a felony under the RICO statute.
Yeah, and like I've always said, stories get out when somebody wants it to get out. Somebody seeks to benefit from the leak. So whoever took this information to the reporter had something to gain.
Yep. Now, Kanakoa the Great on Twitter has breaking news. Nathan Wade, Fani Willis's lead prosecutor, met with Biden's White House counsel on May 23rd and November 18th before indicting Trump, Biden's leading presidential opponent. Is the Biden White House coordinating Trump's prosecution? Because we know that one of Jack Smith's underlings, also met in the White House with people before he charged Trump as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of ways is a bombshell story that should be the headlines everywhere. The fact that I didn't see this, and I don't know, my job is to know what's going on in the news. I think it's pretty revealing. Just checked at some of like the mainstream news websites. Nobody's covering this.
Yeah. So this is big. So if Marco Polo also on Twitter has a whole thing on it. So if you hit Marco Polo 501c3 is on Twitter, and they have a lot on this. Let's see. Yeah, conferring with Joe. So they have the documents. They have copies of the documents of him meeting, when he met at the White House with Joe Biden's counsel. So it's interesting. So I wanted to share that because, like you said, I hadn't seen it. I saw it breaking on Twitter. You know who also has a lot of this stuff? Citizen Free Press.
Yeah, which is now a much better alternative than Drudge Report.
Well, it's always been better than Drudge. Drudge went away a long time ago. I like Breitbart, Fox, Newsmax, I go to them. But Citizen Free Press culls from a whole lot of them. And they had this Fani Willis story this morning. So they had it out early. Okay, last one, and then I'll let you go. We're out of here. All right, let's see. Does anybody have any no comments? Okay, there you go. So that it wasn't like a door. It was like a whole section of that plane flew out of the plane. And thank God no one was killed. Nobody got sucked out. This is why you always wear your seatbelts when you're sitting in your seat on the plane all the time. Even when that sign is not lit, you should always have your seatbelt on. So a shirt was ripped off a little kid, and that went flying out the plane, right? And that had to be so scary. Two phones flew out of the plane as well. Two people lost their phones.
Yeah.
So the government, the NTSB, asked people in that area, like below and outside of, I guess, Portland, to just look for pieces of the plane and like look for stuff and let us know if you find anything. And they did, and people called, and somebody's like, "Yeah, I got the big section of the plane in my backyard, right? Like it's partially up in a tree, and I got it." And so people called. So a guy called up, and he found an iPhone that reportedly fell 16,000 feet from the aircraft, and it survived intact, which I find hilarious because iPhones crack all the time. You drop an iPhone in your kitchen, you're going to need a new one. It's just cracked.
Mm.
It's just done. And it's not just like the little plastic, protective. It's the whole screen cracked. They're terrible. It survived 16,000 feet drop.
So was it in an OtterBox?
Well, that's what they're trying. I used to have an OtterBox,
Yeah.
but you can't put it in your pant pocket and stuff.
Right.
So there's actually a guy. His name is David Rakestraw. He is a senior science at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California, and he works with students as part of the laboratory's science and math education program. And one of the things they do is they talk about cell phones, and they do phone drop tests. This is what they do, I guess, because everybody drops their cell phone. So it's something the kids are interested in, and they calculate rate of descent and all this other stuff, and when it would be hitting maximum velocity and what all this. All right. And he says that three things would have worked in the phone's favor. The first is phone manufacturers are making phones stronger. Phone cases and screen protectors also help protect the phone when it falls, and where it landed would have made all the difference. So Sean Bates in Vancouver posted he found the phone. And he found it alongside a road under a bush. He said the phone was still in airplane mode and a baggage receipt for the Alaska Airlines flight still on its screen. So there was no doubt where it came from, right?
Yeah.
The fact that it was still on and it didn't even change the screen. I hit my phone and all of a sudden I'm like dialing somebody or I'm off the page that I wanted to be on. And this thing fell 16,000 feet and it didn't even change the screen.
So I have to ask, I think this is the elephant in the room. You started off this video call by saying you're a loyal Android purchaser.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Are you now considering switching teams? No. Because I haven't seen any Android fall out of a plane and, remain undamaged.
Yeah, but Androids are famous for being much hardier than iPhones. They do not break and drop and also iPhones don't play well with other phones. And when I have a friend who has an iPhone and they text me, get like 16 texts for one sentence, it's really annoying.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when somebody's mad at you, they send you, a long, it comes in like 8 different messages.
So you're an Android user as well?
No, I'm an iPhone user complaining about how the messages come in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'll switch teams.
Yeah, there you go. So they also said momentum, not that you really want to know about this, but he said a momentum when an object, what matters is when the object stops and what stops it. For hitting a brick wall versus a pillow. The pillow slows the impact over a longer period of time than a brick wall. Phone cases are made of material that flexes and gives upon impact. And he also says the iPhone may have tumbled as it fell. So that would counter air resistance more. Like if it falls like this, it's going to go faster. But if it's falling like this, it's hitting more air resistance.
So like this? So going down like this?
It's faster.
Okay.
Because you're not hitting as much air resistance, right? It's a smaller profile. But if it's falling like this or like this, you're hitting, you've got more resistance here. And he got into the whole thing with the upward force of air resistance. And I'm not going to go into that because my brain, I understand what they're saying, but my brain will freeze. I don't want to bore anybody. So, and the phone got lucky by hitting the grass instead of where the momentum is, so it probably hit like some, and if it was under a bush, so it probably hit like some branches on the way down to slow it down. And it didn't land on the road, which is over here. It landed over here. So I thought that was so cool. I was like, wow,
Absolutely.
cool.
We covered everything tonight, right? I mean, we go from
I know.
Claudine Gay to iPhones, sturdy iPhones. Last time we talked about Tinder, what your name would be on Tinder if you joined. So
oh my goodness. One thing I noticed is you have not fixed your name on Twitter. What the heck?
Well, see, that's not on me. That's on the higher ups. They won't let me change my name. Somebody in 2013 took the handle at Bobby Burack. They're a burner account. They don't tweet, but they won't give it up. So I'm stuck at Burack Bobby _. And
can't you be Burack Bobby? Can't you be Burack Bobby 1 as opposed to _?
Well, then I think you're a troll, right? Like you see people a bunch of numbers, you think that they're inauthentic. So I don't know if that would help my case. But you could argue the _. Is not helping either.
Yeah, it's hard. So it's Burack Bobby, BURACK Bobby _.
It is,
yeah.
Not great.
Yeah. And go to Outkick. You can read all of his comments there. You got some sports ones there. He's got some political ones there. Sometimes you talk about social commentary. So he's involved in just media topics and trending stories. So you can get Bob's really great take over there on Outkick. And you can try to find him on Twitter, BURACK Bobby _. What else do you have coming up? You're gonna be on with Stacy tomorrow night?
I am, yeah. Looking forward to it. We might not have talked since the New Year. I think she was off last week, but yeah, we have a lot to talk about this. I believe so. Maybe, I don't know. I kind of lose track of the days, but we have a lot to talk about. Jimmy Kimmel threatening to sue people, making fun of him. I have a column.
But he makes fun of everybody for a living.
I know, but he thinks that it harms his family when you make fun of him. So I'm going to break that down tomorrow. And also, get this, Mary, a new report, 95% of guests in late night TV last year were liberals. Just 5% were conservatives.
I have to tell you, I don't know about anybody else, but I, for one, am shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
We'll see what Stacy says tomorrow. I think she'll be on your side.
Yeah, Stacy was out last week because they called me to fill in for her, but it was like a last minute thing, and I couldn't do it at the time. So let's very quickly wrap up here. Porch View Farm says, my husband agrees with you about the military in charge of the government. Greg says, thank goodness they were nowhere near their cruising altitude. Yes, when that whole panel went out, I'm flying next month. These things make me crazy. Maybe they didn't have enough evidence between the DA and that guy. HLE Adina says, love your podcast, Mary. Will be returning and looking forward to the next show. Thank you. Next Tuesday, 7:15, Todd Starnes is my guest on Tuesday. So Todd will be with us. Scott says it must have landed like a soft cushion, muddy ground or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. Bobby, always great to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on. I do really appreciate it, and you're a lot of fun and a really good guest. So thank you for that. And everybody, check him out tomorrow night on Stacey Washington Show on Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125 from 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. What time are you on?
That I don't know yet. But just tell them to listen to the whole show. I'll be on at some point.
Yeah, there you go. Listen to the whole show. Great idea. All right. Thank you so much, my friend. Take care. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like the podcast, please. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.